Welcome to a very special episode of the Educational AD podcast brought to you by Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you would like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD podcast. The FIAAA also wants to thank our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. The FIAAA also wants to thank our great platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Booster Digital Displays, revolutionize your game day experience. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. And Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD podcast. This is a very special episode, one that we're calling the Toolbox Top 20. During this past year, our New AD's Toolbox segment has collected a total of 475 responses from 152 athletic directors from across the country. These ADs represent 45 states, along with 3 international athletic directors. We've heard from 67 CMAAs, 47 CAAs, 6 PhDs, and 1 registered athletic administrator. The stories that each athletic director has shared, along with their best practices, have been both interesting and I think entertaining. And all of the toolbox suggestions have been incredibly valuable and illuminating. And we hope you enjoy them as we get ready to share the results. Joining me are 2 of our profession's very best athletic administrators, both of whom have appeared as guests on the podcast, and their suggestions are also part of this compilation. First, I want to welcome Dr. Lisa Langston. Lisa is a CMAA. She's also our current NIAAA president. Lisa's the athletic director at the Fort Worth, Texas School District, and she's been involved at the state and the national level, particularly with certification, which is where we first met a few years ago. Lisa was also a collegiate track star and a professional basketball player, and she brings an incredible background and perspective to our discussion. Dr. Langston, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Jake, thanks for having me again. It's my honor and my pleasure to be with you.
Well, we're excited to have you be a part of this. We're also joined by a good friend, Mike Ellson. Mike's also a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at Christ Presbyterian Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. Mike is also very active at the state and the national level, serving on multiple committees, as well as being on the national teaching faculty. Mike's school has also received the prestigious Quality Program Award from the NIAAA, and Mike was honored by the NIAAA as he received the 2020 Frank Kovaleski Professional Development Award for his work. Mike, thanks for joining this show tonight.
Jake, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be on with you and Dr. Langston.
Well, we're glad to have both of you. For our listeners, for this episode, I've taken all 475 responses and arranged them into 20 different categories, which will hopefully be self-explanatory as we begin to share them. I really want to emphasize that every single suggestion that we received whether it was an actual tool for the toolbox or more of an idea, they all have their place in our profession. And whether it was suggested by dozens of athletic directors or by just one, all of the suggestions should be considered as gold. So let's get to the toolbox. Category number 20, we had 3 unique individual answers. They were only mentioned one time. They're all very good ideas. They were just unique. Jackie Randall from Illinois suggested that you should always carry a tape measure. She talked about the many times that you had to measure things during your day. You can see Mike's holding up a tape measure now. She talked about measuring lines for fields or windscreens, or even, how big is that door? Can we get that box into our office? So a tape measure. Mo Orr, who's the host of the High School Narrative program and podcast, and also an active official, suggested that ADs should have a whistle. And he elaborated on this a little bit. Mike's got his whistle out. And sometimes you just got to blow that whistle and stop everything. And while that might have fallen in another category, I felt it was unique and deserved a place of its own. And then our final unique answer was from Chris Hall from Discovery High School in Georgia, one of our more recent episodes. And Chris used a unique phrase that I really hadn't heard before. He talked about mouse turds versus elephant turds. And his reason for sharing that was he was trying to get his coaches to focus on being solution oriented rather than bringing him problems. And that the smaller you are, or the lower you are on whatever ladder, the smaller problems and challenges you deal with. And the higher up you go, your challenges become bigger. And that's where the mouse turds and the elephant turds came in. But again, those were the only 3 totally unique answers that we had. Category number 19, these particular answers were mentioned twice. They're still great ideas, but we only had 2 ADs mention them. One had to do with the budget. Steve Ripley, who's a longtime AD in Florida, and now he's retired, said that you really need to know your budget, okay, which is true. And Daryl Nance from South Carolina had a great phrase. He said, the budget has no friends. When you're putting that budget together, the budget has no friends. Ann Campbell from Minnesota and Dr. Danielle Lapointe, another Florida AD, talked about the importance of having thick skin as an AD. And Nathan Stanley, a good friend from Oregon, also shared thick skin. So those were categories 19 and 20. And to move on to our next category, we're going to go with Dr. Lisa Langston. Lisa, what was number 18?
Okay, number 18 is Know Your School or Your District Policy Handbook. And that was by Tammy Talley and Jay Getty, both from Florida, and Ed Lockwood from North Dakota. They shared this nugget. And I can tell you, I just gave a presentation about ethical decisions. And part of it is you have to know what's in your district policy book. And also when they ask you to sign for it, because that's what most people do, they just sign without reading. And so I think it's essential that you know what's in that book. Number 17, have a social media presence. And that was by Jen Doey from Illinois and Chris Four from California, and a few other student panels emphasize this as well. That's how you get your point across today, is through social media. Everybody's on it. So if you're not on it, I encourage you to get started with your Twitter account and just make sure that you mark it. The thoughts you're on if you're the athletic director, so that people won't assume the thoughts that you're sharing are those of the school district. And I'll pass it on.
You know, that social media is so important. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't mentioned more frequently. But again, since I only give people 3 choices or 3 tools, maybe that was their number 4. I've got a question for both of you before we move on. I've heard this from a number of ADs, talking about a social media presence. They say that for kids, the student athletes are on Twitter, boys and girls across sports, that the student athletes are on Twitter, but the students, the general population, is on Instagram. And they stress the importance of having a social media presence on both platforms. Have you heard anything like that?
Mike, you want to address that, or you want me to go first?
I can speak to our school, Lisa. It's it's both. It's both, and we have heard that the adults are more in tune with the Twitter world, and our student athletes more Instagram or Insta stories, if you will. For example, we're in the state tournament in Tennessee this week, and we sent out all of our social media channels for representing each sport, and both the handle for Twitter and the handle for Instagram. And I think, for us here in Middle Tennessee, it seems to be more heavily slated towards Instagram than Twitter.
Okay. Well, again, I'd heard that from a couple of different athletic directors, and I just thought I would bounce it off you two tonight. Mike, you're going to take number 16 and number 15. What were those tools?
Sure. Coming in at number 16 is having compassion and having empathy. And what great advice for the world we live in here as we approach Memorial Day of 2021. And, those two pieces of advice came from Dan Talbot of Florida. Dan is also a mentor, cohort mentor. And then Jen Brooks of Missouri. And Jen, started the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. And Jen is also a founding NIAAA Mentor Committee member. And so, how do you gain compassion? How do you gain empathy? Well, if you think about it as an athletic director, what I try to do is go back to my coaching days, and I haven't coached in a number of years, but I try to go back and have empathy and remember how a coach feels after a victory, after a defeat, what it's like, being on the team bus, the team meal, having parent meetings, so on and so forth. So really thought that was some great sound advice from both Dan and Jen Brooks. And then the other piece, Jake, moving to number 15 in our top 20, is to document everything. And we've all heard that all of our lives, but the challenge is to apply what we've heard. And that means to document. And so Dr. Chris Hobbs, from Florida, suggested using a yellow legal pad. Daryl Nance and Casey Thiel, Daryl from South Carolina and Casey from Florida, mentioned the importance of journaling. And so keeping a journal on your desk, ready to write down notes after a phone call, a meeting, it may sound old school, but it's a piece of advice that should be carried forward in future generations. So that rounds out number 16 and number 15.
Yeah, it's not important to document something until you need it, okay? And then, oh gosh, I guess we should have documented that. And I remember compiling those. Some documented old school, some did it through a spreadsheet, but again, keeping track of that. So again, a quick review of our first 5 suggestions. Our single answers, carry a tape measure, have a whistle, bring solutions. Know your budget was number 19. Number 18, definitely know your school and your district policy handbook. Number 17, have some kind of social media presence. Number 16, have compassion or empathy for the people that you touch. And also number 15, make sure you document everything. For those of you who are statistical geeks, the tools that we've shared so far represent 6% of the total answers that our ADs provided. And while those are all great suggestions for athletic directors, for new or experienced, we've got a lot more ideas to share. We're going to take a quick break right now and hear from our podcast sponsor, Violet Defense, but we'll be right back. Once again, the Educational AD Podcast and the FIAAA want to thank Violet Defense for sponsoring us. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you would like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. We're back with the Educational AD Toolbox Top 20, and this is going to be number 14, the ability to be flexible or try new things or have an open mind. Those were all responses that were given that went into this particular category. We had a number of ADs that shared this. One in particular, Josh Blumenthal from Texas, Marion House from Missouri, along with one of our younger ADs, Shay Steele from Ohio, really felt that this was important. So many things come up in our day that we want to do, or maybe they weren't on our list, but we end up doing them instead of those things that we wanted to do that were on our list. So, the ability to be flexible. Lisa, why don't you take number 13?
All right, Jake, number 13, have a sense of humor and be able to laugh at yourself and at life. And other tools in this area were have fun, it's for the kids, be positive, and remember, it's just a game. We had 14 total ideas for this particular tool category and replies from ADs like Pete Shambo of New York, Jess Upchurch from Florida, and Caleb Stoppel from Kansas. And one of the things about this category is, don't take yourself so seriously. I tell you, you will be able to connect with people much better when they see that you're real, and they see that you have the ability to laugh at yourself. So I think this is a great tool.
Oh, I agree 100%. The more we can, laugh at ourselves, I think the more successful, we can be, the more enjoyment we're going to get out of life. Okay. Mike, number 12, what do we got?
All right. Coming in number 12 is to have a high degree of integrity. Jake, we hear that word used a lot, the word integrity, but I really like some of the definitions that our ADs gave us. Replies such as be consistent, be authentic. Lisa just mentioned that. Be accountable. Have people in your circle that are going to hold you accountable to help protect your integrity. Support all of your sports was also mentioned. And then all sports in the common language of the athletic administrator is they're all major sports. There's no such thing as a minor sport. 18 ADs shared this idea, including Dr. Keisha Knowles and Don Baker from Georgia and Roger Mayo from Florida. And, Jake, one of the things that helps me sustain integrity is I love drinking deeply from good books. And if I can read good books and try to pull the words off of those pages of sound advice, that really challenges me to honor the word of integrity.
Oh, it's just, hopefully for us, it goes without saying, but sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't, that, the integrity and what you do and how you do your job, how you relate with people day after day. And you mentioned those words that other ADs used: consistent, authentic, accountable, just so important to, another word, your credibility, as an AD, as an athletic professional. Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. It looks like I'm up next. The number 11 tool suggested by our athletic directors was patience. This was listed by 19 athletic directors. And along with this idea of patience, they talked about having a thick skin, the ability to be a diplomat and not escalate situations, but de-escalate situations that sometimes occur as an athletic director. Ann Julian from Kentucky suggested a book that really caught my ear when she first mentioned it. And the name of the book was Happy Kids Don't Punch You in the Face. Okay? And if you look that up, it's kind of an elementary themed book, but the lessons in there are definitely lessons that would be valuable for any athletic director. Other athletic directors that mentioned patience in their toolbox included Keisha Brown from Georgia, Dixie Westcott from Missouri, and also Ann Campbell, Danielle Lapointe, and Nathan Stanley. So again, don't forget to put some patience in your toolbox. Okay. Lisa, you're going to start off our top 10.
All right, number 10, listen. 20 athletic directors said that listening was an important skill. Also in that category, it included getting feedback. This tool, along with being able to say, I don't know, but I'll find out, was essential. And we got athletic directors who shared this tool were Rebecca Moe from Washington, Ellson from Maryland, former NIAAA president Rich Barton from Utah, and Stephanie Blackwell from Oklahoma were a part of that group. And the thing that I always think about listening as an athletic administrator is I'm looking for hints of truth, especially when parents come in and might register some kind of issue or something like that, because I'm looking for ways to improve. And so I think, it's important to be listening actively and listening for understanding, not listening to be ready to reply.
I've said on many of the podcasts, that's one tool I wish I would have added to my toolbox much earlier in my career. It's just so important. Again, the categories that are being reviewed are ones that I created after listening to all these answers. And I think number 9 is a good example of how a number of answers were combined into a single category. So Mike, go ahead and share tool number 9.
Definitely, Jake. Number 9, vision, values, perspective, and alignment. It's an eclectic category, but the answers are all philosophically aligned. Having your own vision and making sure your vision as an athletic administrator plus your why is aligned with your school district. That was shared multiple times. And the challenge for all of us is, do we know our core values? Do we know our statement of purpose, our role of athletics, our philosophy of competition? Do we know our why? Was the challenge. And it was mentioned by Carol Dorbazin, highly respected athletic administrator, executive director of New Hampshire, Quante Spite from North Carolina, and then Safe Sport Zone founder, Jay Hammis. Those are some very wise individuals reminding us about vision, values, perspective, and alignment.
Again, I appreciate you sharing that. And if you don't have that why, if you don't know your why, you're going to have some challenges as an AD. I get to do number 8. And again, this is one that I share when I give talks or LTI courses. I've just finished my 41st year, and I've been saying this for about 10 years. The one thing I've learned in 30 years or 35 years is 40 years is surround yourself with great people. And that's what number 8 was. It's all about the people, and not just, the coaches that you hire. Of course, you should hire great people, but you also need to delegate to those folks and give them a chance to shine. 28 of our athletic directors mentioned this tool in their top 3. And along with this concept was your support staff, your administrative assistants. Some ADs even said the word secretaries, okay? Custodians, your field crew, your athletic trainer. Okay, these are all the people that you need to surround yourself with so that your program, and by reflection, you can have greatness. Gary Stevens, that great AD from Maine and the NIAAA Publications Committee, mentioned the importance of people. Tall Grop from Idaho, good friend from certification, along with Joey Struy from South Dakota. Peggy Seegers-Braun, one of my good friends from Wisconsin. Stacy Siegel, Lisa, you'll know that name from Texas, okay? Along with John Payne, another certification buddy from the great state of Ohio. It's all about the people. That was number 8. Lisa, you get to do number 7.
All right, and what a great segue, all about the people. Number 7, be present. Tools that are part of this box include be visible, show your work ethic. You got to have grit, bring passion, learn the job, get your hands dirty, and be intentional. Julie Renner also talked about making a deposit into the lives of your students, your coaches, and parents. ADs who placed this tool as part of their box included Dr. Dustin Smith from Arkansas, Jason Fry from Florida, Jamie Sheets, my fellow board member from Utah, Josh Matthews from Georgia, Suzanne Vick from Washington, and Nate Larson from Nebraska. And I can just tell you, this be present. I have a senior graduating. She's one of the top recruits in the nation in the 100-meter dash. And I remember when she was in middle school, and I was at a track meet, and I walked by without speaking to her. And man, she was so upset. And to this day, what I gathered from that was you have to be present. I mean, there was this middle school age kid that taught me a lesson as an athletic administrator, how important it is to see people and be present when you're right there with them. And anyway, I just shared that story with her. And, like I said, she's a graduating senior. And I think she's amazed that I still remembered that and how it made an impact on me as an athletic administrator.
Absolutely. Those types of interactions have that huge impact on us. You've got thousands of kids that you have in a school district or sometimes even a school, and you are there, we are their only athletic director. And so those interactions that we have with them are very special. Great stuff. Thanks for sharing. Mr. Ellson, okay, you have, I lost my track here. Okay, you've got number 6.
Well, Jake, number 6 really ties in it from 8 to 7 here to 6. It's about relationships. And at the end of the day, when I see that word, after all, when I finish my career at the current school I'm at, that will be my number 1 takeaway, will be that word relationships and how special they've been. 38 athletic directors felt building and nurturing relationships is a key tool in the toolbox. Other replies in this category included be approachable, learn everyone's name, create a family atmosphere, and several stress the importance of writing thank you notes. ADs who felt this way or made these comments were Pam Lancaster, Jay Getty, John Segomo, and Ernest Robertson, all from Florida, Holly Fernisi from Pennsylvania, Kelly Fish, a mile down the road from me here in Tennessee, Amanda Waters, I believe she's in sports medicine, from California, Sherry Stice, who we've mentioned before, from Texas, also shared this one along with NFHS Learn Guru Dan Schuster and board member Lisa Gingras from New Hampshire. So that's a pretty special group of people to mention that important word of relationships.
And again, we want to stress that every single answer that was given by an AD, all 475 of them, I think are gold. And I think our panel would agree. But now we're moving into that top 5 that were most frequently mentioned by a pretty good selection of leaders. And so, we put a lot of value in that. Lisa, you get to kick off our top 5. What was the 5th most frequent tool mentioned?
Finding or maintaining balance. Whoa, and that's a big one. 39 athletic directors shared the importance of having balance between work and home, job and family, and life in general. The tool of balance, along with self-care, was the most frequent, along with eating right, getting enough sleep, and exercising. Cheryl Shivel from Florida offered the importance of having a cooler of the proper beverage handy, and Monica Maxwell of Indiana and Sally Ann Reese of California said taking a vacation to reset and rejuvenate was a key tool to have. Other ADs who stressed balance included Mike McGurk, the president-elect of the NIAAA, Meg Sang of Michigan, Nicole Ellson of Illinois, Hutch Hunter from Utah, Lacey London of Washington, Steve Balsamo of California, Rob Seymour from Indiana, my former board mate, Tara Osborne from Alabama, and of course myself. And this is something, I get up my alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning. That's pretty early, but I work out in the mornings because that's where I find my balance. We give so much to others, but if you don't take care of you, you won't have anything to give. And so eating right and maintaining enough sleep. And believe it or not, there's an app for everything. I have a health app that helps me track my water intake, my sleep, and of course, I track my exercise as well. And it's all about having that balance because if I'm tired, I'm not going to be productive. I will not show up with my best self. And I always want to present my best self to the people that I am honored and blessed to serve.
Very, very important. We always, we look after our coaches, and if we see a coach that we think, needs a break, I've done it many times. I'm sure you have too. Coach, you need to send the kids home, take a break. We'll see you tomorrow, get some rest. And I think we need to follow that advice ourselves sometimes, because we're the ones that are closing down the gym, turning out the lights, making sure that last car has left the parking lot and that last kid's been picked up. So important to maintain that balance between work and life. Mike, the fourth most frequent tool, what was it?
Jake, 44 ADs said communication, which is number 4. Communication was an important tool. This should be no surprise. Some mention communication with coaches, kids or students, parents, and stakeholders. Others focus on just one aspect, like keeping your principal informed, or your head of school if you're in an independent school, or meeting regularly with your coaches, making sure that line of communication stays wide open. David Marlowe of Vermont mentioned always having your cell phone charger with you. Florida ADs Rocky Gillis, Russ Wombles, Wayne Stofsky, Mike Colby, and Sherry Scheibel all had communication as one of their top 3 tools, along with author Misty Buck, Pam Cawley, and Ann Stewart of New Mexico. And I think the key thing there, Jake, when I see that word, is consistency in communication. I think that's vital for a successful athletic administrator or athletic department.
No doubt. Again, 44 out of our 150 had it in their top 3. Before we move into the collective 3 most frequent tools, I want to ask each of you. Lisa, we'll go and start with you. When you first saw this list, this compilation, were there any surprises? Anything jump out at you as a longtime AD?
It's one of those things where you sometimes affirmation is so important. And so when I looked over this list, it was all things that really resonated with me. And it just lets you know that you're on the right track. Just for example, just like communication. I mean, that's so essential. And, you think about that. I think it's Bernard Shaw. There's a quote that I always think about is like the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it occurred. And so, so these are wonderful tools. And I mean, if you're a new athletic administrator listening, I mean, you take these and you run with them and you hold on to them. And the great as far as how to be a great leader and a great server to provide service to others.
I appreciate you sharing that. And again, the people who contributed to this, you heard me run off the list of, 60 plus CMAAs, almost 40 CAAs. I didn't mention it. There's, I think, 5 Hall of Famers that are part of this. So it's a pretty good group, including the 2 of you. Mike, what were your thoughts when you first saw the list of the top 20?
I think finding the balance and, looking at category number 10 of listening. Well, if you look up above it at 11, it's patience. And to be a good listener, you have to have patience. And also listen. If you flip the words around, we've all heard it, you got to be silent before you can listen. And I think it's really important that our coaches know that we're listening, or when you're in a meeting. And so how many times have we been in a meeting where we see somebody glancing down at their cell phone and someone's talking directly to them? And to me, that's a show of respect. And it goes back to that compassion and empathy piece. So The listening, being silent was a real sticking point for me. And then the work-life balance. I've struggled with it for my 34-year career. I continue to strive to try to find that balance. And I really appreciated what Lisa said about that alarm's going off at 4:30. She's going to get some of her strength time in that's going to give her, the workout to help her be strong for everyone that she comes in contact with for the day. And so that's a big takeaway even from tonight, let alone all of the information, all the podcasts throughout the last year and a half that you've produced for us, Jake.
Oh, well, I thank you for those kind words. Well, we've come to the top 3 most frequent suggestions for tools in the toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and do number 3. Just ahead of communication, which had 44 responses, was the tool organization, which had 45. And if you combine those two together, that was representative of 21%, a fifth of all of the answers. So, that's a pretty good total. Some of the ways athletic directors express this particular tool was keeping a planner. Okay? And several, like me, still use an old school planner to write what's going in on those days. In fact, I'll tell my coaches, it might be on the website, but if it's not in my planner, it doesn't exist. Okay. So I've had them go to my office and take a cell phone picture of my planner just to prove something was there. Others talked about keeping everything that an AD needs in some kind of Excel program, a spreadsheet, which we also do. You got to keep track of those schedules, those calendars, your contacts. Okay. You got to be organized. ADs have to have some kind of organizational system that works for them. A couple specifically, like Sally Ann Reese of Play on Sports, they have an organizational platform. So check out Play on Sports. Julie Renner of West Virginia did the same for Final Forms. Here in Florida, the FIAAA uses Final Forms. Other ADs that mentioned the importance of organization included, of course, several from Florida. Ron Allen, Dr. Chris Hobbs, we've already mentioned. Dan Como, who's on the national mentoring team with Mike. Mark Lee, Marcus Gabriel, Michael Harrison, Deb Margolis, Teresa Gunter, Jerry Kelly, Mark Rosenbaum, and Lyle Livingood. These are all organized ADs from Florida. Also, Lynn Flint from Connecticut, Jonathan Buckfa from West Virginia used organization as one of their key tools. And Melanie Red, who's a professional strength and conditioning coach we had on as a guest from Ohio, felt that auditing your department was a very important step in the organizational process. Our final 2 toolbox tools appeared on 51 and 60 of our athletic directors' most important tools. Number 2 was mentioned 51 times. Our top tool was mentioned 60 times. And that, again, if you combine those two, that's about 25% of all the tools that were mentioned. And I've already said this, but I want to emphasize it again, that while these 2 answers that are coming up were the most frequent suggestions, I think I speak for Mike and Lisa that we really feel that all of these tools that have been mentioned have tremendous value, and that everyone listening needs to find that right set of tools that's going to work best for you and your school. Now, let's go ahead and get to the top 2 tools. Lisa, you get to do number 2.
All right, number 2 is actually what led me to being able to do this podcast. Number 2 is get involved. This tool was suggested 51 times, and it was expressed in a couple of different ways. The most frequent was get involved with the NIAAA, which I'm very proud of, along with get involved with your state association, which is with the key phrase of being get involved, which was stated 27 times. Other answers that fit into this category include take advantage of professional development at the state and national level, which was mentioned by Candace Mitchell from Georgia, Tammy Talley, Brad Montgomery, and Tyrone McGriff from Florida, plus Don Bales with our Professional Development Academy with the NIAAA, Steve Throne from Nebraska, Also included in this category was tools ask for help and be willing to learn. These tools were suggested by Cassidy Lichman from California, Robert Blackman from Washington, Courtney Windmaker, and Lorna Wolfskill from Florida, along with Susan Noonan from Texas. My fellow mate on this podcast, Mike Ellis from Tennessee, and Keisha Brown from Georgia. And get involved. I will tell you, back in Texas, I asked the president at the time at our state level, I just told him, I said, hey, Joe Burnett, I want to be involved. And the thing that he put me on was the NIAAA Liaison Committee for the state of Texas. And as you can see, the rest is history.
Well, I still recall, meeting you for the first time. Both of us were named to the certification committee for NIAAA. And, there's another example of, getting involved and having that opportunity. You, of course, went on to, bigger and better things, becoming our NIAAA president. Well, Mike, we've come to the number one most frequently suggested tool that can go into a new AD or an old AD's toolbox. What was the number one most frequent suggested tool?
Jake, Lisa, coming in at number one was simply the word network or get a mentor. You need a mentor. Finding a mentor is so essential, and so many of the individuals that were on your podcast, Jake, mentioned this, and I know you said 61 times, but hearing everyone's story on each podcast, you could kind of hear that advice interwoven into literally every call. On its own, the tool is mentioned by 13% of our ADs, and combined with number two, getting involved, made up 25% of the tools that were suggested. 63 responses for this tool were fairly evenly distributed between mentor and networking. And they were also balanced evenly between men and women. CMAAs gave mentoring, networking the nod more frequently than CAAs, but those ADs without a CAA or CMAA also mentioned the value of networking and mentoring almost 20 times. Each of our state associations, as well as the NIAAA, has a state mentoring coordinator or director, or they're working on it. And they're also working on or already have in place a mentoring program. If you're watching this podcast and you're looking for a mentor, or of mentees in your state needing a mentor, number one, reach out to your state mentor director, but you can also reach out to me or any member of our NIAAA National Committee, mentoring committee, for help. We're currently on a listening tour about mentoring and what it can mean for each state. And then this toolbox, for example, is going to be essential for the success of our committee and the success of the concept of mentoring moving forward. We all need mentors. Even those of us who have been in this for a long time, we're mentees. We need help. I'm learning so much even from Jake and Lisa, even tonight on this podcast. So don't ever think as a mentor that you've got all the answers. Always have a spirit of teachability. And I think that's important for the success of networking and then of a mentor-mentee relationship.
Great stuff. I'm so glad you mentioned that about reaching out if you would like to become a mentor, or reach out if you feel you would benefit from having a mentor. We're going to review the top 20 real quick by name, and then we're going to ask my co-hosts, if you will, for some final thoughts. Numbers 20 and 19 were those individual answers. 18, know your school or district policy handbook. Number 17 was have a social media presence. 16 was make sure compassion and empathy are tools that you're using with the people you come in touch with. The number 15 response was document everything, written form, electronically, make sure you document. Number 14, be flexible, be willing to try new things or have an open mind. Number 13, have a sense of humor and be able to laugh, especially at yourself. Number 12, have a high degree of integrity. Number 11, make sure that patience is part of your toolbox. Right along with that, number 10, listen. Number 9, make sure your vision, your values, your perspective, philosophy are all in alignment. Number 8, never forget, it's about the people, the students, the coaches, everyone you come in contact with. It's about the people. Number 7, be present. Make sure you're visible, show your work ethic, have grit, bring passion, be present in the job. Number 6, we mentioned number 8, it's about the people. Number 6 talks about the relationships. Never forget, it's those relationships that make it all worthwhile. Number 5, find and maintain balance in your life, balance between work and home, balance. Number 4, communication. Make sure you're having consistent communication, quality communication with everyone involved in your program. Our top 3, number 3 was organization. Number 2, get involved. And that was balanced between get involved with your state organization and get involved with our NIAAA, the national organization. And the number 1 tool suggested by our athletic directors most frequently, the importance of networking, and along with that, finding a mentor. Okay. There's your toolbox top 20. Lisa, I'm going to pick on you again. Now that you've heard them, you've seen them, you've helped share them. What are some closing thoughts you have for our listeners?
Oh, what a fantastic list or tools for people to work into their everyday life with work. I'm so impressed by the what people had to share. And again, when you think about what people share, that's the beauty of what we do as athletic directors. It goes to what people said, that number 1, the networking and the mentoring, because mentoring takes on so many different forms. And your podcast, this is a form of mentoring where people can get information. It's saved so they can get back to it. It's like, okay, now what did Joyce Dewey say about so-and-so, so-and-so? Let me take another listen to that podcast. And so, I'm just thrilled to be a part. And I thank all the people who were on your podcast that they said yes to give us this valuable information that we can take and utilize as we go about serving our coaches and most importantly, our student athletes.
Well, I certainly thank you for your kind words. And I still remember our episode where I had the privilege of interviewing you and what you shared about your background. I think I told you at the time, but it was very meaningful for me. So I appreciate that. And it's just so crazy. When we decided to do this about a year ago, my original idea was I'm going to interview the Florida athletic directors and just, promote them, promote the FIAAA. I was coming on board as the president. I wanted to do something different for that year. And about 7 or 8 episodes in, I got a call from someone that I had met through NIAAA. And he said, "Hey, I've been listening to the podcast. Can I be a guest?" And so, we took off from there. So it's been a lot of fun. I've certainly enjoyed it. And again, I got the easy part. I just asked the questions. So thank you for those kind comments. Mike, wrap things up for us. What do you think after, we've got the top 20 out there?
Well, Jake, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this with you and Lisa. And, getting to know you through the very first ever Daryl Nance created mentor cohort 2 years ago. To writing the new LTC 716 course. It's been a real privilege to get to know you and to be part of this. And then for Lisa, it really helped me, Lisa, last summer and I know COVID was hard on all of us, but there were also a lot of positive outcomes. And one of them was hearing our stories. And so you were speaking to hundreds of people on a Zoom call through the Inside Out initiative with Jody Redmond and Joe Ehrman. And I got to hear your story last summer, and I knew you were going to be the president of the NIAAA, but I didn't really know your background. And so to hear that story really made me excited as a member of the NIAAA to think about you serving, following in the footsteps of Lannis Robinson as a leader of this organization. So to be on this call with both of you is a tremendous honor. And then Jake, don't underestimate the value of the very first word or name of this podcast, because we're all about education-based athletics. And to see educational AD podcast really re-emphasizes and strengthens why we truly do what we do. We're not travel sports. We're helping communities enjoy sport and rallying communities together. So it's been a tremendous honor to be on this call tonight with so many takeaways. Thank you both.
Well, again, thanks for those kind words. And it's been great getting to know you and everyone with the NIAAA. You know what a great organization we have. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these podcasts are being uploaded to the FIAAA Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. So we appreciate you tuning in. We're also talking about possibly turning this Toolbox episode into an NIAAA webinar or maybe a workshop. But if you got some ideas, please reach out to either Mike or Lisa or myself. If you'd like to be a guest and you haven't been asked, just ask me. That's how you get on the show. And again, thanks so much for tuning in. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.